So what is the law in Canada when it comes to immunization? Well, here it is in paragraph 3. Unlike some countries, immunization is not mandatory in Canada. Let me repeat that to you. Unlike some countries, immunization is not mandatory in Canada. And here's why. It cannot be made mandatory because of the Canadian Constitution. Do you see that there? Nothing that is said after that period, and that is a period, overrides that statement right there. Now, if that law troubles you, guess what? There's other countries that don't have this position, so you can move to those countries. Feel free. That's up to you. What I can tell you is here in the country of Canada, there is a law. The law of the land says plainly that immunization is not mandatory in Canada, and it cannot be made mandatory because of the Canadian Constitution, period. That's it. Now, for all of you who might say, well, then we'll make you do a PCR test every 3 days. No. Why not? Because that is also unlawful here in the country of Canada. Let me introduce you to Bill S-201. This was ascended in 2017. And the act is to prohibit and prevent genetic discrimination. Let me repeat that. This is a statute of Canada. This is an act to prohibit and to prevent genetic discrimination. Now, let me take you right here to the interpretation of what a genetic test is, just in case you're thinking that that is not a PCR test. Well, you would be wrong. Here is the definition right in the law itself. A genetic test means a test that analyzes DNA, RNA, or chromosomes for purposes such as the prediction of disease, or vertical transmission risks, or monitoring diagnosis or prognosis. So, a PCR test is indeed a genetic test. Now, it is prohibited in Canada. Look in section 3. It is prohibited. I'm going to highlight that for you, just so you all can see that. It is prohibited for any person to require an individual to undergo a genetic test as a condition of providing goods or services to that individual. So if I'm going to the dentist, you can't ask me for a PCR test. If I'm coming into a grocery store to buy some salad, you cannot demand that I give you a genetic test, nor can you demand that I be inoculated and show proof of inoculation. I don't have to show proof of any kind of immunization because it's against the Canadian Constitution to force me to do it in the first place. That's why I don't have to provide you that information, and nor do I have to provide you a PCR test. So if there's any goods or services out there that are saying, well, I'm not going to serve you unless you give me a PCR test or one of those, inoculation passports. Nope, it's against the law. Period. I want to go back to this one. See that period there? Yeah, it's a period. Period. Now, it is also prohibited for any person to require an individual to undergo a genetic test as a condition of entering into or continuing a contract or agreement with that individual. Employment is a contract. It is an agreement. So if I don't provide you a genetic test, too bad. That's the bottom line. I don't have to. I don't have to provide you with one. We have a contract. We have an agreement. So you can't make me give you a PCR test. Period. And by the way, if you're one of those people who say, well, if you don't provide me this information, we're not going to enter into a contract or an agreement. Well, guess what? That's unlawful. You just broke the law. If you say, well, I'm not hiring you because you won't provide me a PCR test, guess what? You just broke the law. You're a criminal. Period. It is also prohibited for any person to require an individual or undergo a genetic test as a condition of offering or continuing specific terms or conditions in a contract or agreement with that individual. Okay? So you can't alter anything in our agreements or in our contracts if I don't provide you a genetic test. Period. I don't have to. And by the way, if I choose to go get a test, I don't have to disclose the results. It is prohibited for any person to require an individual to disclose the results of a genetic test or a PCR test as a condition of engaging in an activity described in any of paragraphs 3(1)(a) to (c). So employment, goods and services. No, you're not allowed to come to the concert. You can't say that to me. You can't demand any kind of immunization from me. You cannot demand a PCR test from me. And if you do in any shape, way, or form, or if you try to threaten me or coerce me or anybody as a Canadian citizen to be inoculated, if you shame them or if you try to force them in any shape, way, or form, or threaten them in any shape, way, or form, you are breaking the Canadian Constitution. You are the criminal. If you try to force them to give you a genetic test in any shape, way, or form, or coerce them or shame them into giving you some kind of genetic test and its results, you are a criminal in Canada. That's the deal. And I don't care if it's the Prime Minister that's doing it, then he's a criminal. He can't force anyone to take a genetic test, and he knows it. And he can't force anybody to take any kind of inoculation in this country, and he knows it. So, for all of you out there, I need you to know that if you're participating in shaming, coercing, threatening, or trying to force people to be inoculated or to give you their genetic tests or their PCR test results, you are a criminal. And that's just the way it is. Period. If you don't like that, you go to one of those other countries. You go. You go to the country that forces immunization, because that is not Canada. Grace and peace.